Hey everyone, this is Dave Alton. I'm with Strategic Information Resources, and we're going to be covering some cybersecurity stuff for legal professionals. We're going to wait about 2 or 3 minutes to make sure everybody gets in here, and then we'll go ahead and start the presentation. While that happens, we're just going to mute, but if you do have any questions or anything like that, please pop them in the chat or the Q&A. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. We are really happy to have you here. We're going to be talking about the digital brief, which is just a name we came up with to talk about how cybersecurity has really kind of become much more critical and important in the law profession. So my name is Dave Alton. I am the CTO here at Strategic Information Resources. We are a group of, we're an MSP, managed service provider. We provide IT for law firms as well as other clients. We like to say we protect your people and your profits from hackers. We're a team of solutionists, so we don't just work on cybersecurity. We handle all kinds of IT infrastructure and things like that. And we have a team of 18. We're based in Los Angeles, California, but we really work with anybody all over the country. Well, our special guest this week, normally I get to do these all by myself, but this week or this month, I should say, I'm joined by Tom Jew from Palms and Associates, who's a vice president there. Tom, why don't you take a minute, introduce yourself, and let everybody know what your background is.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I appreciate the introduction. Hi, everyone. Good to see everyone here. Thank you for joining us. I've been with Palm for just under a year. Prior to that, I was on the consulting side in the consulting world over at one of the big four. And then prior to that, I was at one of the big payroll and HR companies. So always been in the mid-market, helping businesses either through payroll, consulting, and now on the insurance side of things. So looking forward to it, Dave.
Great. Thanks for being here. So the agenda for today is we want you to walk away with a plan on how to protect your firm. So we're going to talk a little bit about the stakes and what's possibly coming, a framework that you potentially could use. What is information governance, operational security, and risk management? We're going to dive deep into all three of those. We're going to talk a little bit about some small firm success stories. We're also going to talk about the security life cycle for a small firm, and then have you walk away with kind of an action plan from today. So the stakes, why does this matter? Why is protecting your systems important in 2025? Well, according to the American Bar Association surveys, 25% of law firms have reported some type of data breach in 2023. That number likely has gone up in that since that was last surveyed. We expect that number probably around 30 to 45%. Last year was a big year for hackers and threat actors to attack law firms, and we saw a lot of that. Solo attorneys and small firms, that's roughly 2 to 9 attorneys, show breach rates of around 35 and 32% respectively. This is because the bad guys know the smaller firms don't have all of the capabilities some of the bigger firms do. So having all the protections and things in place, it's easier for the bad guy, right, to get in and get what he needs and get away with what he wants. Of the attorneys in small firms that were surveyed, only 31% had cyber liability insurance. And that is something that can really help in that when there is an event, you're not left holding the bag all by yourself. It is a traumatic experience. We've had I have lots of stories that I could tell about how just disruptive this is to someone's life and business and livelihood. So the average cost of a data breach is $4.88 million in 2024. Small businesses don't typically see that large of a number, but it's normally much, much larger than it is, than they have the resources to pay for. So we're really focused on that small firm, that 2 to 9, up to maybe 100 employees in total, where you can't really afford $1 million or a $2 million kind of event. It will, likely put you out of business, right? So it's the reality today is that cybersecurity isn't just a big firm problem anymore. It's an everyone problem, not just law, but everyone. But especially small and solo practices are really being targeted by this, and that shows through in the data for all small businesses are much more targeted because they just don't have the resources the same as some of the larger firms do. So the framework, we're going to talk about 3 pillars today of legal cybersecurity. We're going to talk about information governance, which is how to handle data, how you communicate securely through email, and then any access controls or authentication methods. We're going to talk about operational security, which is how your machines, devices, and mobile devices talk on your network. Incident response planning, which is key in all of your cybersecurity planning, and then security awareness training. Lastly, we'll talk a little bit about risk management. We'll talk about vendor security management, cloud security controls, digital legacy protection, and some cyber liability insurance. So we're going to dive into some real world cases. I'm also going to share some cases that we have experienced and we have seen, not just with law firms, but our other clients. So this is a real estate attorney wire fraud situation that happened in 2023. They're a small practice in Naples, Florida. They fell victim to an email compromise. The attackers monitored transactions and emails for weeks, looking for an opening, looking for something that they could take advantage of. A last-minute fraudulent email with altered wire instructions was sent out to the attorney. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in client funds were wired to the fraudulent account. The money was transferred overseas within hours and became unrecoverable. Malpractice claim and reputational damage followed. We've also seen this in really like nonprofit. Just this past December, we had a client that it wasn't our client, but they sent money to one of these fraudulent wire funds, and it was due to the fact that the person that sent the invoice originally, they were compromised, and they had sent that to our client, and our client was like, "Oh no, we're breached. Oh no, terrible." And we got in and looked, and it wasn't them, and it was the other side, and they ended up wiring over $300,000, 150 in one transaction, 172 in another, and they were luckily able to get that money back. One, they were able to stop the payment because it was soon, but one had been almost 2 weeks. So that money was gone. Luckily, their cyber liability insurance policy kicked in, and they were able to recover those funds. Tom, how often do you see those cyber liability insurance plans kind of coming in and saving the day like that?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. I think it's very important for the cybersecurity insurance to kick in at the end, and it can really help a lot more than just recovering funds, but also help with extortion as well, right? If you need to pay off the hackers that kind of hacked into your system, or even loss of income as well, so it can help recover loss of income for the cybersecurity threat that happened to the firm.
Yeah, and we've also seen where insurance has taken a big step forward in kind of quarterbacking the situation too, right? We see a cyber insurance liability policy have some form of incident response plan where the insurance company is kind of directing the various actors to, hey, lock this down, shut this. We need to do forensics on that. And they pull in the right people to get all that done. Oftentimes we're boots on the ground. We're like eyes and hands on keyboard type of thing. So we will typically get involved with that type of stuff. But it's really helpful when you kind of have a plan in place. So just some key things that you could have done here, right? Create a classification system for all client data, right? Make sure that your client data isn't easily available to an attacker. Implement a verbal verification procedure for all wire transfers. We've taken this a step further with our clients. We tell everybody if there's a financial transaction that is being conducted through email, a phone call to a known good contact to a known good number is required before making a change. We've seen payroll adjustments. We've seen new employee fraud. We've seen the wire transfer stuff like this. We've seen invoices. It's just there's a huge gamut of bad actors doing bad things to steal money is really what it is. And then lastly, require multi-factor authentication for all systems, right? So if you are signing into your email, you got to put in your two-factor code to get in and things like that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how do we do this? So data classification. So a lot of people really think of data classification as like, oh, well, that's like only for the government. But really there's three basic categories of classification. You have public, things that you put on your website or anybody could see, right? It's not going to cause any harm or issues or things like that. We have internal type of classification, which is it's a routine business document, meeting notes, HR policies. They should be kept private, but they don't need heavy security, right? Then we have confidential or sensitive, and that includes client information, case files, contracts, anything with personal identifiable information. Those need a strong level of protection. And you can think of it like, kind of sorting your mail. A court flyer can kind of go on the receptionist's desk, and that's not really a big deal. But a letter from a client, that should probably go in a locked drawer, right? So make it part of your process to use folders that are labeled and that you can go in and make sure they're color coded and train your staff that, hey, if this is sensitive, drop it in here. So email security, this is another place where this is a little bit more of a technical kind of control, but enable email encryption for all client communications. Normally there are various ways to kind of handle that. Make sure that you have a DMARC policy. So this is something that's not new. It's been around for almost 20 years, but it allows someone to, if they send an email and it's fraudulent, your email security system can look at it and say, depending on the policy, hey, if this isn't correct in some way, right? There's some SPF and DKIM protocols that we use to see if it's correct. If it's not correct in some way, I want you to immediately dump it to spam because it's probably someone trying to spoof your credentials and get into your system. And then, make sure you're using secure client portals for sensitive documents. So this is things that have, personally identifiable information or maybe of healthcare information, right? Make sure that stuff is only being accessed through some kind of secure portal. Email is not always the most appropriate way to handle that. And then access controls. Make sure.
Hey, Dave, real quick on that.
Yeah, sure.
Do you mind touching a little bit on Outlook and what Outlook has security measures in place? Sure.
Well, it's the classic IT answer of it depends. So Outlook and Exchange have a lot of features that are capable of doing various things, up to and including full end-to-end encryption. But not everybody has the right licensing. So a standard license of Microsoft Office 365 doesn't afford you the things that you need to do full email encryption. Most of the time, we don't recommend Microsoft tools for everything. We like to kind of put a few things in place to make sure that you don't have one point of failure, right? We're trying to make it so it's more challenging. So we use a system called Proofpoint. Proofpoint does spam handling, but also allows you to do a full portal-based encryption to a client or someone else. We see a lot of our lawyers, we see a lot of tax attorneys use this, where they are sending, tax information and social security numbers, and it's got to be, really highly protected. Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yep, perfect.
Cool. Yeah. So access controls. Role-based permissions for all case files, right? So if their role doesn't require them to have access, they shouldn't have access, right? Turn off access to that. Regular access privilege audits, that's where you're going in and saying, oh yeah, hey, it looks like Bob still has access to this. He really shouldn't anymore. And then when staff leaves, we have often walked into clients where we're like, you told us you have 4 people on staff, but you have 37 people that are active in your security domain, in your identity domain. What gives? And like, oh yeah, those people left years ago, but they never went in and deleted them or deactivated them properly. So technically, they all had access to that stuff still. So it's really important to have a process and procedure in place for that. So we're going to talk a little bit about now operational security and go into this case from Gunster Law Firm. They had a data breach. It spanned a few years. The case took a while, but it was a Florida firm with offices throughout the state. So this is regional, larger firm for sure. But they exposed around 10,000 personal and health information records. In that, the firm faced a class action lawsuit. They had to settle for $8.5 million in November of 2024, and this just kind of shows like even a regional sized law firm, $8.5 million is nothing to laugh at, right? Like that's a big, it's a very, very challenging dollar amount to come up with and affect. And they could have done some simple things to protect themselves from it, right? They could have simply deployed mobile device management. That's more of an advanced kind of function and something that you likely need help for, but you can also make sure that everybody is using VPN for all the remote connections. We tell all of our clients like, hey, working from Starbucks is cool, but make sure you're on the VPN, right? Because that protects your data. And we've seen lots of people go into Starbucks and their data be able to be, seen while they're sitting in Starbucks, passwords passing across the wire that the hackers can go in and see. Have an incident response playbook. So this is where you sit down and you say, okay, I've got all this. I'm going to have a data breach at some point. What do I do? Who do you call? What are the right phone numbers to have available for you? Do you have a PR firm on retainer? Do you have a lawyer, a breach counselor? Do you have insurance? And who would you call in that case, right? So you want to make sure that you're prepped and ready for when this happens, because when it does, you don't want to figure it out on the fly. It's just way too challenging. And Tom, I know you've only been there a year, but have you guys had any clients that have gone through a breach and had to activate their cyber liability insurance?
Yeah, so not particularly a law firm, but a lot of nonprofits. A few of our nonprofits have dealt with this as well. And, I don't know if the hackers think that nonprofits, are an easier target, but a lot of our nonprofit clients have been targeted, and upwards of, 150,000 to 250,000 as well. So it's very, very devastating to a nonprofit to be taking of that money.
Right, for sure. And then lastly is conduct regular security awareness training. And this includes things like phishing, right? And trying to figure out ways to warn you of the dangers that can come from having someone send you a bad email, right? A malicious email. So what can you do about it? So we talked a little bit about that. Require VPN for any remote access. Like there should never be any kind of open door to your systems or your digital information in any way, shape, or form, right? Create that incident response playbook. You don't want to have to write that on the fly. It is a very stressful time often. There's a work stoppage, depending on the size of the breach and the monetary value of it. There may be law enforcement that's involved. Even having a one-page listing of who to call, what to shut down, and how to notify people can save you thousands of dollars in response time and reduce your legal exposure. It's critical. The faster you jump on this, the better off you are. So always try to be Johnny on the spot with this. We would tell anybody like, hey, look, if you think you're breached or you think someone has accessed your system, just turn it off, right? Unplug it from the network. Don't apply any power to it until a professional can take it into a secure environment and look at it and see what the exposure is and what the risks are. And then conducting that regular security awareness training, right? Your people are your first line of defense, right? Whoever is sending you those emails, most breaches happen because someone clicks something or mishandles a file, right? Teach them what to look for and keep teaching them. This isn't something, a lot of people just do this once a year. Most of our clients, we do quarterly or monthly, depending on their service level, so that they're aware of the way bad guys work so that they're not taken advantage of. So we're going to talk a little bit about risk management. This is a solo attorney medical equipment scam. This scam is actually perpetrated on all kinds of people. A lot of solo practitioners kind of fall for it. So if you're in the law profession and this is something that's happened to you, don't think you're the only one. This happens in all kinds of industries. So the way this works is in 2022, a solo practitioner was targeted through a professional networking platform. Normally it's LinkedIn or maybe it's Facebook. Could be a law specific one, but we see this a lot on LinkedIn. The scam was really well thought out, and the bad actors posed as legitimate medical equipment company and offered a very attractive commission if the attorney would act as an escrow agent in a large transaction. The way this happens is that there's this urgency that the threat actor kind of portrays in these emails and conversations, right? So the attorney was pressured into quickly moving $2 million, yes, $2 million, with probably a little less due diligence than they should have, with the promise of a large commission. So they kind of overlook some of the warning signs, right? Basic internet search would have exposed this fraud and really kind of went, oh, what was I thinking, right? This is definitely a too good to be true kind of outcome. I in another life was a professional photographer. This happened all the time in professional photography. The way it worked was somebody would come in, they would say, hey, I have a wedding coming up this weekend, right? And nobody plans for a wedding 2 weeks beforehand or a week beforehand. And they say, oh, yeah, you know what? Our photographer flaked out on us. We really need someone to jump in fast. And they're like, we're going to send you $10,000. And, a typical fee would be $3,000 to $5,000. And like $10,000, like, what do you? And they're like, we need you to pay the caterer $2,000. We're not going to be there in time. And so they would send you a check for $10,000. And then you would deposit it, and then you would dole out funds to these other companies, and then they pull the check, right? And so those other companies, of course, were them. And so not large sums of money, but for a solo practitioner, that kind of thing is a big deal. And this happens in tax, in the law profession, anywhere where there's a professional and you can work as a solopreneur and kind of work on, oh, hey, there's this really big deal and I can get some kind of funds or something like that. It's so common. And the things to look out for are really just paying attention to the urgency of something. Typically email, it's not urgent. You should never take it as urgent, right? It's just a form of communication. Somebody sent you a letter, right? So anyway, a lot of stories come out of this particular scam. But the funds were transferred into account. They were controlled by the criminals, and basically it was a social engineering attack that worked, right? Really question things that look too good to be true. So what are some of the things that you can do? So vendor management, security requirements in all contracts, regular vendor security assessment, and limited vendor access privileges. So have a process for this, right? If you're using a new vendor, make sure that they're vetted and you know who they are, and that, hey, you can't really get a scam through there, right? Make sure that you're independently verifying it. Don't ever take someone's word for it just off the internet, email, through LinkedIn, through any of that type of stuff. Really do some due diligence and put that stuff in place. And then if the worst thing were to happen and there is a con, make sure you have your cyber insurance coverage aligned with your specific risks, and make sure you're reviewing your exclusions. Tom, I'm sure that's something you guys do for your clients all the time. Make sure those exclusions are well thought out and managed, correct?
Absolutely, Dave. Very detailed to go through and figure out their operations, make sure they line up to the policies of cybersecurity.
Cool. So let's talk about some success stories. We talked about all the bad. Let's talk about some of the good. So of small 5-attorney estate planning firm implemented a password manager firm-wide. They deployed MFA on all their systems, including email. They created a standard process for wire transfer verification, and they were able to successfully avoid multiple business email compromise that targeted the firm. This firm was because of the estate planning function that they do, highly targeted. So these systems that they put in place really lowered their risk for something bad happening, right? An attorney, litigation boutique, moved from on-premise server to a secure cloud provider. They implemented encrypted client portal for document sharing, and then ran quarterly phishing simulations for all staff. They were able to detect and contain a ransom attempt before encryption. So a lot of times when we talk about that, fast reaction, we have certain tools and things that we put in place that if a threat actor gets in, we can tell when, like, Tom, when you are typing in Microsoft Word, you're not using back-end commands to, set up your, escalate your privileges or gain access to the global administrator accounts or things like that. So we can see a lot of that stuff happening in the back end, right? And so what we can do is when we see that, within minutes, we're isolating that machine. So it's not good. That machine is probably compromised. It's the data that's on it is probably encrypted, and they will likely receive a ransom note for that particular device. But it's not going to encrypt the whole server. It's not going to encrypt everybody's stuff. So we're really talking about limiting that risk profile, and whatever does happen, the blast radius is as small as we can make it, right? So it's a single machine, a single attorney. We've had attorneys just recently who shared a computer at home. His wife got on the computer, had gotten a exchange bill from I think it was Geek Squad. I can't remember if it was Geek Squad or Best Buy. It was one of the two, and they called the Best Buy number that was in the email. They reached a customer service person. The customer service person said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am. We made a mistake. We installed something on your computer that we weren't supposed to. Let me go ahead and get in your computer and take that off, so you'll avoid these charges in the future." Oh, okay. They had bought a computer from Best Buy. They were they were aware of Geek Squad. They get in within I think it was less than 3 minutes. We had noticed the activity. We had isolated that machine. It was no longer able to communicate on the network. We were alerted to the situation. We called the end user. Had they been able to attack that account, and put info stealers on it and some of the other things that they do, they would have been able to draw down on multi-million-dollar, investments. They would have had access to bank accounts, and they would have had access to some firm data that was not segregated properly. So sometimes it's not even the attorney's fault. It's just a situation that happens, right? So it's really important to kind of know where's your data and how is it protected, and make sure that all points of contact are protected properly. So these are some of the common vulnerabilities that we see, right? You don't have dedicated IT staff, budget constraints, time pressures, kind of a lot of informal processes. Tom, I suspect you see this a lot, right? You go into a small firm and very little is written down. The primary attorney kind of handles it all. Like, how do you talk to them about maybe doing some of that process analysis and getting it written down?
Yeah, Dave, I think, well, the most important, I think to convey the message is trust, right? I mean, I think for law firms, a lot of clients go with law firms and, because of the trust factor. And, that trust is breached because of hacking and information getting loose and, probably no longer a client. So we really stress the importance of trust within a law firm and how important it is.
Perfect. And then technical gaps. We see a lot of, we'll walk into some place where they'll have 10-year-old machines or running on Windows 7 sometimes, which hasn't been able to be used for more than 3 or 4 years now. They don't have backup procedures in place. So these are all common things that a small law firm, really anybody should be doing, whether you're a law firm or anyone else, but a law firm specifically, you got to make sure that you're backing up, that you're training your staff, and that you're really putting some time towards protecting what's vulnerable within your systems. So, and we typically do this in some form of a life cycle. So first we look at and we assess, where are you at, right? What is your, what are some of your security gaps? Where are you missing process and procedure, right? Then we're going to maintain that, right? We're going to go in, we're going to make sure, 2FA is turned on and that people are updating their systems, and we're going to pay attention to the security culture and make sure people are aware with security awareness training, things like that. And then we're going to close some of those gaps, right? We're going to look for quick wins, and then search out long-term projects that'll really raise that bar around our security resilience, right? Making sure that you're providing the right resources, and that staff is engaged in all of those strategies. So what do you do? How do you do this? So I would tell you, there's in a month, in 30 days, you could get some really quick wins and start to reduce that security kind of footprint or risk footprint. So turn on MFA for all your systems, all of them. I don't care, your bank, your computer, your Apple ID, your Facebook account. It doesn't matter where it is. Make sure 2FA or multi-factor authentication is turned on. You want something that's going to verify it's you. Over 90% of attacks can be blocked by that one thing all by itself. The other thing is, make sure your systems are staying up to date. Don't wait weeks, months, years sometimes to update to the latest versions of software. I know it's scary. I know sometimes there are problems with those updates, but not updating presents a much larger risk today. I can tell you, last month on Windows, there were 3 critical vulnerabilities, all very easily hackable, all out in the wild, that Microsoft has patched this past Patch Tuesday. If you haven't updated, go in, check for updates, do the updates. It will likely save your butt when the bad guys get into your system, because they won't be able to, right? Deploy password manager firm-wide. We see a lot of what we call shadow IT, where an attorney will go in, they'll start, I used to use this system in another firm, and they'll start using it. They create a username and password, but that username and password has firm implications, and they don't document that outside of them. They leave for a week, they're out on vacation, they're no longer with the organization. That loss of password can be hugely detrimental. We've seen this happen in every form of business. So it's really important to kind of keep those passwords up to date, make sure they're managed, make sure they're unique, make sure they're complex, and that you're not reusing those passwords anywhere else, right? We too create that incident response plan. Tom, I'm assuming that if a client had a cyber insurance policy, they could call up their carrier or you and say, hey, I need an incident response plan. Can you help me with that? Is that something that the carriers or you can help with?
Absolutely, Dave. Yeah. And then
Great.
we'll put any money or funds towards it to create that as well. So cybersecurity insurance does cover that.
Yeah, and it's hugely important to have a plan in place, because if you don't, like I said, time is the enemy when you're in a breach. The more time you give the bad guys, the more damage they do. So the quicker we can get on top of that, the faster we get through it and we move on and fix the problem versus deal with a whole cyber incident. Make sure you inventory all your client data locations. Do you know where all your client data lives? Is there a standard policy for your attorneys to put things in the right places to make sure they're classified properly? And then weeks 3 and 4, really look at improving your security, right? Implement email security controls. Deploy endpoint protection, right? Make sure you have some kind of virus protection, endpoint protection that's monitored and maintained, right? It can't just be, you can't just put it in and hope it's going to work. It's got to be monitored and maintained. And then make sure you conduct that initial staff training. Carly, did I see a question come in? I'm not sure. I thought I saw something pop up.
Yeah, so looks like Teresa asked about a password manager, and she's asking if you can talk a little bit more about what that might be and if it's the same as a password vault app.
Yeah, so it is the same as a password vault app. There are a lot of those tools out there. We typically recommend one called Keeper. That's what we deploy to our clients when they need it. But there's lots of good ones. I'm not singling anybody out. The one thing I would tell you is saving your passwords in a browser is a major no-no. Do not do that. Your browser is not a good place to store passwords. It needs to be in a secure, vaulted type system that has a master password to get in, probably 2FA to get in, and those can then be shared securely with others in the same firm or even externally at times. But make sure that you're using something that is a password manager and not just it saves passwords in clear text like in a browser. Apple's is quite good. Apple's password manager is quite good. Google also makes one that's quite good, but make sure you're using their password manager. And then at the end of that 30 days, look, reassess. You're going to find that you are way better off than you were at the beginning of that, right? You kind of looked at your systems and looked where you were vulnerable and you went, oh, hey, I can fix these 5 things. Okay, now you're better. Okay, and security is all about like iteration and kind of always trying to get better at it, right? So a lot of times we'll see companies, oh, I did my security. I don't have to do anything else. And that's never the case. Security's always got to be updated because the bad guys are always evolving and doing different things. For attending this webinar, we really appreciate you coming. We're kind of winding down. So if you do have questions, those are going to come up here in just a second. Feel free to start popping those in the chat. But we do have a couple handouts. One is going to be talking a little bit about some of the essential security practices for legal professionals. And then the other one is a cyber liability insurance quick guide for legal practices. Feel free to look at these, use these. If you have questions or aren't sure about something, feel free to contact us. And if it's more on the cyber liability insurance side of things, we'll definitely get that information over to Tom and get that going as well. So you can do all of this yourself. Nothing I've talked about in this discussion today is something that is so far out of the reach of regular non-IT people that it can't be done. But I will say it is a complex thing. It does take a lot of work to do that. And we're designed and built for helping organizations get their cybersecurity kind of in order. So that's definitely something that we can help with. And like Tom said, also, that's something that he can help you get your cyber liability insurance in order too, right? Because it's not just that you've got your systems in order. You have to have that liability insurance in place too. I mean, you wouldn't, you probably wouldn't live in California and not have fire insurance, right? Whether or not you can get it is a different story. It's the same thing with cyber liability. It's so ubiquitous. It's so pervasive that you really do. This is something that you need to have in place. So is there any questions? We'll give a minute here for some folks to pop some stuff in there if they have any. All right, it doesn't look like we have any right now, but if any come up, by all means, let us know. You can reach out to us here at SUR Inc. You can reach out to Tom. We'll send some information around. If you wanted to, maybe take the next step and look at, hey, what does evaluating or even doing a risk assessment look like? We have a link here. We offer a free webinar or a free strategy session where we can kind of talk through some of that stuff and give you at least a good idea of what direction you should head and how you should get there. Tom, if you don't mind, can you pop your contact information into the chat? Because I neglected to put that on any slide, so I apologize for that. That is my fault. Yeah. That way they can reach out to you directly if they want.
Perfect.
And Carly, I think we have that booking info in there, but if you wanted to pop our info and our phone number in there, we'd be happy to chat with folks too, if they so need. We want to thank everybody for coming today and listening. If you watch this after this is going to be recorded and put up on a website, so if you need to share this with somebody, feel free to do so. We're happy that we had you. Tom, any parting words from you?
No, great job, Dave. And thank you for everyone that making it.
Great. We really appreciate everybody being here, and we look forward to having you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.